Hey, how's it going guys? Jack and Matt here with the Toaster Bros, and today we have yet another GPU benchmark going in our test bench, and this one is the RX 5600 XT.
This is a graphics card not a lot of people are talking about. The 5000 series from AMD is kind of an afterthought because you don't really see them that much on the market anymore, and they were pretty short-lived because it was right before the shortages happened. And the 5600 XT compares very well to a 2060, but is pretty cheap compared to a 2060 on the used market. Is it actually good though? We're about to find out. But first, a word from today's sponsor.
Today's video is brought to you by Thermaltake and their Arctic i360T R4 custom gaming PC. Featuring the latest 12th gen i5 12600KF, 16 gigs of their tough RAM 3600MHz DDR4 memory, and an RTX 3060 Ti while being housed in their awesome Core P3 open design case, making it not only a super powerful gaming and content creation machine, but a beautiful build that will look awesome on your gaming setup. To learn more about this awesome gaming PC from Thermaltake and many others, check the link down below, and special thanks again to Thermaltake for sponsoring today's video.
So this GPU is going into this PC right here, and this is our test bench. We have not modified it in any way since the very first GPU video we did, and this test bench consists of the Ryzen 5600G, which is a 6-core 12-thread. It's an APU, so that we have the option to use the integrated graphics if we ever need to. 16 gigs of PNY accelerate, and it is 3600 megahertz dual channel. We have a 1 terabyte Team Group NVMe SSD. We have a B550 Asus TUF Gaming, and it does have Wi-Fi as well. And then I believe the power supply is some type of wattage. I always forget the power supply, but I'm sure that we can, it'll all be there. It'll be up on the screen somewhere. And it's all inside of this beautiful Deep Cool ATX case.
So now let's talk about the 5600 XT, because it's a card that, again, not a lot of people are talking about. Compares very well to a 2060 because they both have 6 gigs of VRAM, and it does come in at under $200 on the used market. When it comes to a card like this that is older, you are going used market for this, so prices do vary, but anything below 200 bucks is a really good deal, and we're gonna run off some of the main tech specs. Now this thing rocks 36 compute units, a boost frequency up to 1560 megahertz, a gain frequency, which I'm assuming is the base frequency, is 1375 megahertz, and we're looking at the 6 gigs of VRAM that I was talking about. Now AMD does recommend a 550 watt power supply with this thing, with a total power draw of 150 watts on the GPU, which seems a little bit extra in my opinion, but these companies like to over exaggerate, so you're not pushing the limits there. Now that 6 gigs of VRAM is GDDR6, so we're getting some more modern VRAM there, so you'll have better performance in games. And again, it comes in at under $200 and is not necessarily used and abused like some other cards out there. Yes, they are older, and some of them have been used in mining rigs, but this card right here, in particular, the 5600 XT, is kind of in the middle between something like, you know, that cheapo 5500 XT that people like to get, and the 5700 and 5700 XT that a lot of people used for mining. So this card kind of got forgot about, but you know what? We're here to remind you of it today. Let's test it in some games and see how it performs.
Alright gamers, now that we have the RX 5600 XT on the test bench, let's dive into some games, shall we? Now the games we decided to test are as follows: Call of Duty Warzone, Spider-Man Remastered, Battlefield 5, Cyberpunk, and Forza Horizon 5. Now first up, in Call of Duty Warzone, on normal settings at 1080p, we got an average of about 80 plus FPS, sometimes into 120. Now Call of Duty Warzone is probably the most popular, high demanding game that a lot of people want to play, especially coming to PC, and getting 80 plus FPS is pretty good for this graphics card. Yeah, you could lower some settings a little bit. I had a couple high settings here and there that probably could have been lowered to improve the average frame rate, but I like to mix good visual quality with good gameplay, and 80 plus FPS I think is more than playable in a game like Warzone, especially if you're just casually playing, you're not playing competitively. And the fact that this graphics card, the RX 5600 XT, can be had for under $200 makes it a really good buy, especially compared to the 2060. Now, of course, the 2060 has things like the NVIDIA encoder and ray tracing, and the fact it's an NVIDIA card, most people really want NVIDIA hardware, but if you really just want raw gaming performance, the 5600 XT is a much better buy, and as you can tell from the shots I was hitting in this game of Warzone, I think it does a pretty good job making you a good gamer as well. Next up, in the newly released Spider-Man Remastered on PC, on high settings using FSR 2.0, we end up getting 60 plus FPS with a few dips below. This is going to be a new test in our benchmark rotation, basically playing Spider-Man and swinging throughout the city. The RX 5600 XT is pinged at like 99% usage as we're swinging around the city, so I think this is a good test for high-end GPUs, even on high settings at 1080p, and I think it looks really good as well. This is a fun game, and if you have not played this on the console, highly recommend you pick it up on PC. Now next up, in Battlefield 5 on medium settings at 1080p, we got an average of 80 plus FPS with a few dips into the 60s. Battlefield 5 is a very CPU and GPU dependent game. It really stresses both equally, so there might be a little bit of CPU bottlenecking here, but it does look like the 5600 XT is the one taking most of the work, pinging closer to 100% usage. Now in terms of what CPU I would recommend you pair with this graphics card if you're doing a PC build, which we are by the way, so stay subscribed for that. If you want to go Team AMD, which I probably wouldn't recommend nowadays because the value is just really not there, the Ryzen 5 5600X would be the obvious choice. In terms of Team Intel, you could get an i5 10400 and even i3 10100 and you probably would be perfectly fine. The 10400 is going for a good price on the used market, so maybe deal hunt for that. But I think an easy option would be the i5 12400 and you get that 12th gen architecture, the upgrade support to 13th gen, and you can slap in a newer GPU and have no bottlenecking whatsoever. Now on to some built-in benchmarks. First up, in Cyberpunk on high settings, using Fidelity FX on the balance preset, we actually got an average of 107 FPS with minimums of 51 and max of 180. This card is going to be great for Fidelity FX. You can even stretch into 1440p if you wanted to. Use Fidelity FX on games that support it, like higher end titles like Cyberpunk, and get really good performance, probably even close to 1440p high refresh rate in games like Cyberpunk, even at 1440p. So really good performance here from this card, and the 6 gigs of VRAM does help it a lot compared to other budget cards that only have 4 gigs or older high-end cards that only have 4 gigs of VRAM. Having 6 can really help you in newer titles. And the last game we decided to test was Forza Horizon 5 on high settings using that built-in benchmark, and we got an average of 96 FPS. So in recap, the 5600 XT, is it a good buy? I think at under $200, it's an absolutely great buy. You can make a $600 or even like $550 gaming PC around this thing, and it's going to run circles around a lot of gaming PCs out there on the market that you could even build new. I know with our build guides on the channel, when we've done $600 gaming PCs, you're looking at something like a 1650 with an i3 10100, maybe an i5 10400, and with some extreme deal hunting, something like a GTX 1660, or maybe like, oh, I don't know, an RX. No, there's really not much from AMD right now new that you could go with. So yeah, used market, absolute steal. If you're willing to buy used, check the link down below, being an affiliate link, and it will help us out. Highly suggest you do some deal hunting for this graphics card because I think it's one that's severely underrated and one that not a lot of people are talking about. So now to finish the benchmarking section of today's video, how to bring Jackson back in here to wrap this video up real quick.
Alright, so we just got done benchmarking this PC, and of course it performs pretty similar to a 2060. You got the same VRAM, you have really similar specs. The only real difference between this and the 2060 is, one, the 2060 is technically still being produced, and two, you don't have the NVENC encoder that you would with the 2060. You don't have ray tracing, so if those are things that really upset you and you need those things, and you know, you can spend an extra $75 to $100 and get a 2060, maybe even a new 2060, or check out EVGA B stock, but we do still really recommend this AMD card, especially on the refurb and used market.
And we're going to be doing a PC build with this. It may have already released or maybe releasing after this, so be sure to hit the eye in the top right corner to check that video out. But yeah, definitely use the links in the description. They will be affiliate links. They will help us out. There will be eBay searches for this graphics card, and it'll point you in the right direction of models to get. Here we have an XFX model that actually showed up in really good shape, so we'll leave some links down below for you to do your shopping for your next graphics card.
So as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out our other two YouTube channels and also our Twitch.tv/ToastyBros, and do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.
Now, if you don't want to have to worry about everything that we just said, you should check out PCBros.tech, because not only will we help you figure out what exactly you need, but we'll also make sure you get the best price for it.
PCBros.tech is our PC selling business. We sell gaming PCs, gaming laptops, and more. If you use code ToastyBros2 on checkout, you can save 2% on your next purchase. See you guys later. Goodbye.
Peace out.